Hey everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Danny here. Today I'm talking to you about Change 123. So Change 123, or Change Hifumi, as it says right here in the volume cover, was serialized in Champion Red magazine. Now this has some big hitters. Actually, it's got DeadTube, which I've talked about before. I've always seen this one, Frank and Fran. This one manga I never reviewed. Yakuza Girl is in here. Some Saint Seiya spin-offs. So yeah, there's a lot in here that looked pretty cool. And this is written by Iku Sakaguchi, and it's drawn by Shiuri Iwasawa. And I've never seen their other work before. Sakaguchi has written a bunch of stuff, but Iwasawa has only drawn this and one other thing. So I thought it was somebody that I would have known because the art does have some familiarity to it. And I think that's to do with the year it came out, which was in 2005. And it ended in 2010. This is a monthly series. This is 60 chapters. Let's go ahead and get into this, man. I found this randomly. This was during my binge of reading a lot of manga, just trying to find some new stuff. The volume cover caught my eye, and I said, sure, why not? So I went in super blind. We start off with our main character, Kosukegawa. He's a high school freshman, and he is a man of justice. He is a big fan of Kamen Rider and all those franchises, like the Sentai stuff. I think that's the right term for it. So he's pure of heart, super obsessed with this stuff, and he sees a classmate, Motoko, in danger, and as he goes in to rush for help, she ends up actually being the one kicking this guy's ass that's bothering her, and she sees that Kosukegawa saw her, is embarrassed and says, you have to keep this secret. Don't tell anybody that I did this, and we'll do anything. And then, of course, the guy comes back for revenge. And then this is where we find out that Motoko's secret is she has 3 other personalities within her. It's not multiple personality, but it's like, was it dissociative identity disorder, right? DID. And so she has 3 other personalities in there, which is Hibiki, Fujiko, and Mikiri. And as we find out more about her is that she was raised by 3 fathers after her mom passed, and they were all excelling at very different styles of combat. One is judo, one is just like, I think it was like karate or something, and the other one was a weapons master. Each personality can master each one. They were all developed when she was very young during all this training, so they all specialize in their own unique combat styles. And so now we have Kosukegawa befriending Motoko and thus thrusting into this wild ride that is their high school life. It's a very interesting premise. It's what kept me interested. It's interesting to see how it played out. It felt like this manga was trying to figure itself out for a good while. I have to say, it being a monthly manga was a good decision, but it also hurts it at the same time. The reason why it's a good idea is because early on it does vary of, oh, here's the personality of the month. Let's see what they can do. Let's figure out their personality and how we could get in to the other characters leading off from there, right? And if this was weekly, you would have to do that in a very shorter amount of time. And that probably would have hurt when trying to figure out how to push this plot forward. But then on the other hand, the reason why I think it's also bad that this was a monthly manga is because you're trying to figure out what you want to go with, right? And usually when you're talking to your editors about pushing stories forward and maybe go a different route with the characters, a lot of that is from the feedback that they get in the surveys and just stuff that they could see. So it being monthly, it's like that's going to take a lot longer, and then things have to kind of slow down until you figure out exactly what you want to do. Because I feel like there's a lot of things that could have happened here, and I really wasn't expecting what we were getting in the story. Because like in the first half, it's all just slice of life stuff. Kosukegawa is hanging out with essentially 4 women in one body, and he's sort of developing feelings for them, and then sort of vice versa on her side. And then on the other hand, because they're excelling in combat, we see them go out and showing what they can do. You normally would in a manga. It's like we have to show off what's so special about our main characters. And it was like this balance of, are we going slice of life this whole time? Are we going to go this weird military route, right? Where there's like these plans being laid out, like this is a special person. Motoko has something that people of high assets want. And so that they're going to track her down and hunt her kind of thing. And it was all up in the air until the very solid arc, which was, it was so up in the air for me still, where we find out more about Motoko and exactly what's going on. And then from then forward, we realize, okay, this is the goal for the rest of the series, is to find a way to make Motoko, quote unquote, I guess, a normal person now, right? Because as they explain about dissociative identity disorder, it's all about like, well, these personalities were created to help protect the mind through some trauma or anything that happened. And since she lost her mother when she was really young and then thrusted with 3 fathers, and they all trained them specifically with different styles, you know, like they were created in order to carry all that for Motoko's psyche. So, you know, trying to find an even ground to basically get back to square one. And that's where Kosukegawa comes in as well, I guess, right? Because he's knows her secrets, so she finally has somebody to talk to about it. And he can understand when things are happening and try to help her get back to Motoko instead of just switching to Hibiki Fujiko or Mikiri. There was still things that could be happening in between all this. After this defining arc that I mentioned, where we find out more about Motoko's past, we get a simple slice of life school manga with some romance comedy in there. And there was still potential stuff being sprinkled about. I thought for sure, once I found out the multiple personalities, like, oh, this is going to be kind of like a harem series, right? You know, Kosukegawa's just going to be the average nice harem main character, you know, with good attributes and just overall wholesome. And that's going to make all the girls fall in love with him. And I thought we were going to get a lot of one-on-one interactions with the personalities, and they would all slowly, one by one, fall in love with him. And then at the end of the series, right, Motoko would understand her feelings type of deal. Doesn't really go that route. I still kind of felt like it could have happened because we get more characters introduced that are recurring constantly. And these were clear telltale signs of a harem series. Even towards the end of the manga, the final 2 chapters, one of these characters that come in, she's gone for a while, and then it's like, hey, what happened to her? Oh, actually, she's doing this thing. What? Really? She never does that. And it's like, oh, because she interacted with Kosukegawa. There was still all of that in the air, but it never really went forward to it, which, I mean, could have been cool. But this high school manga does what few high school mangas rarely do when it comes to the main 2 characters, right, with Motoko and Kosukegawa. So I guess that's why you just really can't push it anymore. And it happened fairly early on too. I would say like before the halfway point. So that was interesting. And then just going with the rest of the story, it's kind of just a little bit above average. There was, I mean, the cool thing is the personality stuff, right? That's the most interesting thing you can get out of this. But I mean, there's a lot of standard stuff. All the 3 personalities that are in Motoko's body all represent classic character tropes that are in a harem series. You have the mature older type, you have the tomboy type, and then you just have the child type, right? Like sort of like the, not really like specifically younger sister, but the kind of innocent type of thing that you would find in a younger character. Almost the lolly role, but of course she is not a lolly if you check out the art. You know, we still get some pretty good fight scenes, I have to say, especially when we get other characters being involved. It's all really solid. Like the art really complements it. The way it could get pretty fierce, and just the sharpness with each strike, really nice. And having her with different techniques is refreshing when it comes to the fights. And it's almost like we have a full roster. We have a full 3-team roster here that we could just explore how we want, and then the way they could tag in and out. It's all pretty interesting stuff. Downsides to the writing, though, is I kind of wish certain parts were stretched out more. Like if this manga was just a little bit longer and we can explore some stuff that was going on, I think I would enjoy it more. specifically with Kosukegawa. He's not really doing much. He is the weak trope when it comes to main characters like this, because we have such a strong female lead. We kind of don't need a clash of the two, right? Though I kind of wish he did learn a little martial arts. That would have been interesting to see. But he has his own solo arc towards the end. I was actually digging it. Good writing in there, and like as he was learning constantly throughout the arc, I just wish that was fleshed out more, or at least we would have seen him in more situations, or just a few more scenarios, have one more chapter. I think all of that would have been pretty nice. And my other downside would have to be with Kosukegawa's best friend, who becomes one of the main characters in here. He is helping in this situation as he comes to find out, like, oh, this is DID. And that is Kanami, and he's like supposed to be the cool badass type character, right? Like, he's super smart. He already graduated college, but he wants that high school life, so that's why he's back. NASA wants him. He's a really big deal in the military side of the world. He's almost surface level when it comes to his character. Like, they weren't even trying to hide what he was doing for the most part. And when you get the reveal, it's in the fact that he's helping Motoko out pretty significantly. I would say he's barely in this. He should have been in here a lot more. We could have gotten more things fleshed out with him. We only got really one explanation in his backstory to explain why he's friends with Kosukegawa in the first place. It's just, just the subtle things for more character growth. And the fact that, he kind of just stayed the same throughout the whole series. I mean, like, I get that's the point with that type of character, but it was like, I've already seen this. Like, why are we going back with this guy if there's nothing new? And then my final downside for this series is the exploration of the three fathers, right? We do get a turn to check out each one individually for the most part, and just seeing what they're about and how they view Motoko as a daughter, as well as the other three personalities that they all know. But it's pretty obvious the importance when you see the amount of page time that each one has, which is disappointing. I wanted a more even balance, because the first father we met, it's not even really about him, and that's the story. And once that's over, we don't really see him at all until the end or whenever he's brought up. So that was really unfortunate. Then the second guy we met, he's cool, and I wish we got more dialogue with him and at least interactions with our main characters, which there was a lack of. And then finally, the final father is obviously the fan favorite in the series, as we see him being fleshed out the most, has the most personality, I would say, and actually ties in to the story in a nice way. So it's just this big imbalance. Again, if this manga was longer, we could have had more stuff in between each father, and it would have been cool. Because, the question you can always think of is, well, who's her real father, right? We don't know much about her mother. Are they even related to her in a specific way? What's going on? And having the even amount of time to have with each father could keep that mystery afloat. But, going back after the reveal, looking at how the manga was structured, it's pretty obvious, I would say, who it is. But they do a weird twist that I kind of was thinking was going to happen, but the way they did it is more realistic. So that was something. I wasn't expecting that. We get a lot of support cast, and we get a lot of concepts thrown in, and it's all interesting overall. I just wish some of it was executed better, or if we could have just focused on one singular thing. Again, like I was saying, are we going slice of life? Are we going more shonen action? What's the deal with this series? And I think just trying to figure out which one's going to take over is the problem of trying to find the story. Because, even going through reviews here on my anime list, it's like, yeah, it's pretty average, but, the premise was interesting. And I think that's how I feel at the end of the day, too. There's some great stuff when it comes to the personality switches and their relationships that each individual one has with Kosukegawa. So that's cool stuff. And similar to the fathers, they also have a clear, there's a clear sign of who's the most popular one out of the three personalities. I think they went with the right choice, meme-wise. That's some pretty good stuff. But again, like, it's the same thing there. The personalities, they have their shining moments, but some of the shining moments doesn't do good service to character interactions. It's just like showing off cool stuff that they could do and their personality, but I kind of want more stuff coming in together, because there's one that's obviously going to be mainly for like the ecchi gags and for the action. One's great for dialogue and like sophisticated conversations, and the other one is the all-around average. And then of course you have Motoko, and she's kind of like awkward and shy for most of the series as well. So I think it's just trying to find that balance for the series was the problem. And I could get it, you know, when you have a premise this interesting, it can keep people hooked, but for how long? Other than that, man, the art, I like it a lot. Again, it has like this very familiar feel. And again, 2005, 2010 kind of makes sense, because I was thinking, oh, maybe this is like an assistant that worked on Kenichi at one point or something, or maybe this is one of his older series, but I didn't remember seeing it in his discography. It's just like that era, you know, you always see similarity in art depending on where you're at back in the day. So it was just that cool familiarity. But yeah, again, like I said earlier, like the action, how sharp it could be, and the choreography and all that's pretty solid stuff. The designs are great. Yeah, they're great. There's a gimmick that Kosukegawa has, is when he has impure thoughts, because again, it's a rom-com, so of course ecchi's involved. To get back to his senses, he remembers specific quotes from a specific episode from the Sentai series, right, with the Kamen Rider characters. And so, you know, they draw the Kamen Rider characters, and they look pretty solid. So, I mean, other than that, man, yeah, I mean, the art's, it is what it is for the era. It's good stuff. The coloring's great too, when we could get those, and on the volume covers as well. So my closing thoughts is, I would say check it out. Give it like the first arc or two, and from there you could really decide whether or not you want to keep going with the series. This is not well known. I do not see a lot for this series. Go check it out if you're interested, man. But for me, I think it's average. It's a little bit above average. There were definitely some good moments, but, you know, I don't see myself looking back on this series anytime soon. So that's all I have for you today, guys. Thanks for swinging by. Remember, you can send us an email, unversepodcast@gmail.com. Are you one of the few readers that have actually read this? I would love to hear your thoughts. And of course, we'll talk about the next episode. And while we wait for that episode, you could follow us on social media at unversepodcast anywhere you go. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.
They see you as small and helpless. They see you as just a child. Surprised when they find out that a warrior will soon run wild. Prepare for your greatest moments. Prepare for your finest hour. The dream that you've always dreamed is suddenly about to flower. Crying for the thunder. Miracles of ancient wonder.
Feeling old to fear, knowing just for you you'll see a new world and we'll make you love. Fighting.